Good evening, everybody. This is the Newbury Zoning Board of Appeals. It's Thursday, March 14th, 2024, it's 7:30, and we're here at the Newbury Municipal Offices, 12 Kent Way, Byfield. We have quite a few applications on the agenda tonight, probably twice as many than we usually have. So if you're sitting here and waiting and you need to discuss something, then please step out and go to the top of the stairs, because if you just stand out here, we can still hear you. So we'd appreciate that. With that, let's get started, Mario.
Okay, first on the list, Brendan Byron and Jillian Jablowskis. The applicants are requesting a special permit finding for relief of section 9710D2C, detached accessory apartment for the Newbury zoning bylaws and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to raise the existing barn to construct a detached accessory unit to use as an accessory apartment on the property located at 230 High Road, Newbury, 01951, accessory map R26, lot 16.
Good evening, Jill. Yes, good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Brendan Byron and Jillian Jakubowicz. Trust me, I've been practicing and I still can't do it. Jakubowicz.
There it is.
There you go, I did that. And the property is at 230 High Road. I just want to point out that that is the existing home. It is located on a 1.63 acre parcel of land, which is actually on the corner of Emery and High Street. So some people know Emery, some people don't. Emery is basically a paper road that the town had discontinued and has been preserved as a right-of-way and access for the various people who abut the roadway. So it's basically owned to the center line by all people who abut. And Brendan and his wife own, 600 feet down Emery Street, something like that. Roughly. But that would be the location where this accessory detached apartment would be accessed. So pursuant to your bylaw, which permits people to actually construct and or convert certain parts of their property for a detached apartment, for the purpose of actually allowing these homeowners to generate some income to be able to support properties just like this. This house was built in 1910, so you can imagine the amount of upkeep it requires. As you can see, they do a very nice job maintaining it. The proposed detached structure is very much stylized after the home. I think that's called a Dutch colonial. And as you can see, it does model it. The particular structure does comply with all of your general land specific requirements. You have to have 60,000 square feet in this particular zoning district. The dwelling can't be more than 1,000 square feet or 35% of the home. I did detail all of that in your package. Brendan and his wife need to certify that there are no restrictions. So for example, many times there are certain restrictions that carry forward on a property. There's no restriction on this particular property that carries through and would otherwise prohibit this type of use of the property. The other things, it meets all of the dimensional requirements. Currently, there is a garage that sits in the same location where this detached structure is going to be constructed, but that is going to be raised because it's one of those non-conforming structures. It's basically located right on the road. Now we're pushing back. We're going to meet all the existing and current setbacks. One of the other requirements is obviously you have to make sure that this particular new dwelling isn't going to interfere with the lifestyle and use of the existing primary structure, and it doesn't. It has its own access, it has its own parking area, it doesn't require traversing over Brendan and his wife and his little girl's home. It's all very separate, and that's actually an advantage to both users of the property. And all of the other requirements, we did just go through and explain how it met those particular requirements. Essentially, that the architecture's consonant, and you can see that the septic system's able to handle it. It's a 6-bedroom septic system, it's a current 4-bedroom home, and it's a 1-bedroom apartment. So we actually meet all of those things. There's already obviously utilities because it's an existing habitable home. So they're going to extend the utilities from the home over and it'll be on the same services. So all of those requirements are met. And at this point, Brendan, who is an engineer, can answer any of your questions relative to the property. If you have a question for me relative to the title or any of the submittals, we would love to answer them for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add, just happy to answer questions.
All right.
Joe covered it.
Board have any questions at this time in review?
There's some questions regarding the road access.
Yeah. So I understand, somebody had, you know, everybody gets concerned when you have these private easement rights, and I actually did include in your package a copy of the plan and a copy of the, what's called an indenture. That is how the road by the primary owner originally, way back when, in 1913, had owned the property. And then there were all these people who abutted the property, and what this person did was reserve and grant. So that road, Emery, is a legitimate right-of-way. And it is subject to the town abandoning, which is why in your package that I gave to you, I highlighted where the town actually abandoned Emery, which meant it's just simply a private access way only for those people who abut it. And that Brendan and his wife and all of the other people who abut that way actually own to the center and have what they call non-exclusive easement rights that are pertinent to their property. So all that means is no matter how many times Brendan sells the property, that property carries with it the right always to use Emery in common with the other users, but none of the other users can block each other. So, and that's all in the package. I think somebody raised, I don't remember what the actual
It was a
concern-
question.
Yeah, it was just a question. So that is the answer, and I did provide the backup to my opinion.
And will they be able to use the driveway from High Road also?
Go ahead.
So the intent is to basically separate the proposed carriage house. I can flip it over. So we have that driveway that connects from our main access point. We have two driveways off of High Road. This driveway that
Right.
currently goes from here
Yep.
to the existing barn
Yep.
structure. Our intent is to remove that connection point and solely use this as a way to really isolate what we're calling the carriage house area and have it be an exclusive little area for whoever may be living there. So it's not like we are sharing the primary driveway entrance of our home. Where we have the rights to use Emery Street, we felt that was the best approach to access the carriage house.
Thank you. Michelle?
I have a couple questions.
Jack?
There's some confusion as to number of bedrooms on the existing.
Yeah, that was, so on the plan you originally got, it says 6-bedroom house. It was supposed to be 6-bedroom septic, and you just put it on the house. The house is truly a 4-bedroom house. It is not a 6-bedroom house. The assessor's record shows it is 4, you know, it's not, it's only 3,000 something square feet. It's a 4-bedroom.
Well, these man and man people, are you with them?
Yes, I was the one who resubmitted showing you that it is actually a 4-bedroom house with a 6-bedroom septic.
What happened was this.
Why does it say in footnote number 1, the plan was intended to reference the primary home as a 5-bedroom home?
Oh, that's a mistake, 5-bedroom.
So we got 4, 5, and 6.
I
Pick one, all
apologize.
right, let's go with it.
It's a
That's my
4-bedroom home.
fault. It's
Four
It's a
4.
4-bedroom home. This will be one additional bedroom, 6-bedroom septic. What happened was this is record plans, record information from when the septic was updated back in 2016. So there's notes basically saying, hey, we're doing a 6-bedroom septic. We can do 6 bedrooms in this house, and it was a carryover. Simple mistake. There's only 4 bedrooms in this home.
4-bedroom, 6-bedroom
Yeah, I
septic.
apologize, yep.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, and this drawing might help us. On the lot setbacks, where's the 14-foot one? It says we got, side A is 0, front is 14 feet, 162, and then 17 feet.
So the 14-foot is the existing dwelling. That was, what I listed on the application was the minimum setback on the property. The actual setback to the existing primary residence is 14 feet on High Road. The setback, technically the front setback of the carriage house from High Road is about 135 feet.
Right, I saw that, I measured it 134.
Right.
But the rest of it, so do we have the setback somewhere? Maybe I'm just not seeing.
Yep,
Where are the
so
setbacks
this-
for the existing one? For the carriage house?
The carriage house, I have, basically what I did was I offset the property lines 20 feet, so this dash line here is a 20-foot setback.
Okay,
And we pulled, the existing barn you can see is down here, which is basically a 0 setback to Emery Street now. So we pulled it back to be compliant 20 feet all around. and it's tucked up in that corner of the property.
So we're conforming all the way around?
We're completely conforming all the way around.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a utility plan?
Not yet. I know we have to find a way to get water, electric over there. Septic connection will be fairly easy. The grade, obviously it's not really shown on this plan, there's a grade change of probably 3.5, 4 feet from where our existing septic tank is to where the carriage house, so gravity will likely be able to be utilized to get down to the tank. And then the water and electric is just finding the easiest point of access to get across.
It has to come from the house.
From the house, correct, yep.
Any other?
I'm good.
So what's the overall square footage on?
The overall interior square footage you have.
3,200.
Oh, of the carriage house or the primary?
Oh,
carriage.
960,
You have it written in there.
952 square feet is the interior for the carriage house, and 3,275 is for the primary home.
Great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So this time, is there anyone that would like to speak for? Seeing no hands, is there anyone here that would like to speak against? All right, seeing no hands. I do have one comment and basically a concern, in that the accessory apartments and all accessory apartments that we've had have some relationship and share that with the primary house. And the way the zoning is written in terms of the attachment of utilities, in terms of the size, it isn't exactly stated, but I believe the intent is that we're not looking for people to create accessory apartments and then block them off to a separate living space on the property. That in terms of allowing this to happen, the accessory apartment within somebody's dwelling unit has obviously some control to it, and then on a property, the detached typically has a relationship to the primary dwelling, of which the primary occupants that are required to live in either one of the units has some control and ownership and overview of this accessory apartment that they are now building and allowing other people to be on. So to have access and no access from your driveway to the unit seems kind of troubling to me, because we don't want somebody to create a unit and then you rent it out and put up some trees and it's basically its own house, and you have no overview or oversight to the accessory apartment that's on your property.
So I think one aspect of the driveway removal, to not necessarily promote this being used by the occupant over in the corner, is we do have a young child, and if people that, we don't know everyone's schedule that's gonna be living here, so if people are coming in this way and our daughter happens to be out there, that's kind of a risk for us in that regard. Our intent isn't necessarily to build this house and then put a 40-foot wall of trees around it and completely isolate it. It's more to provide whoever's living there this sense of, you have your own space and we're not on top of each other, and we would still absolutely take ownership of it. We walk right by it every day to walk the dogs out back, and I don't see that changing going forward.
And because we do have to connect all utilities through there,
Right.
we would never be putting up trees, and we do want to be able to, or Brendan and his wife do want to be able to visualize, because it's still on their property. They just simply wanted vehicular access to be separated.
I understand, but I'm saying it's a concern of mine that in terms of allowing an accessory apartment and then separating the use of the driveway to the property, even if Emery Street is there, is the lack of control for that apartment. And the accessory apartment runs with the owner for the special permit that's given, and should the house be sold and, I don't know, if issues arise, it's not like once the special permit is given, it runs with the house and the land.
Nope, it does not. So, because you have to sign all of those certifications. I mean, they absolutely do recognize that. This just happened to be the ideal location to place the structure. And the requirement is that you have completely separate parking areas, and you allow for two independent parking areas. So that's why we thought that this was kind of more in keeping with what the board desired. Because it definitely has the same style of architecture, and it is intended and is part of the property. And I,
As an architect, I'd argue that
Oh, there you
if
go.
you're making a house and putting so much effort into the style that the two would go hand in hand and have some relationship to each other, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, that's just what I'm seeing, and that's what I think the intent and what we've, for all the accessory apartments that we've reviewed, and for people that have concerns, your site plan doesn't show any adjacent dwellings. Are there houses on opposite Emery Street, or what's the next closest house? And
So the next closest house it's actually not a house, it's a Nobleport Builders. They're on the corner of Emery Street on High Road, they're about 130 feet away. The next closest house to us is the abutter on the back. She's approximately 400, 500 feet away from the structure. And then directly across is just vacant farmland, and about 300 feet away is the first settlers' burial ground in that area. So that's the area that we're working in.
Is there any intent to have a patio or paved area or anything like that outside of this accessory apartment?
Ideally, we would do something off the backside. We're trying to limit the work in front, trying to keep that as a landscape buffer to the roadway, as there is no buffer now. So we figured that would be an improvement to this street right now, because as of right now, like I said, the barn is the edge of the table, the road is that apron around the table.
So for me, I would like to see the complete package of a utility plan proving out how the utilities are getting there. If you intend any future patios, then I think we'd like to see that on the plan, and if there's any lights or anything that would like that patio, then we'd like to see that now on the plan and not have stuff added and added and added again. Because of the sensitivity of accessory apartments and other people to your neighbors, and again, the distance and the separation from the house is troubling to me in terms of what I feel the intent is, but like, you know, for me to understand this, I'd like to see a little bit more proving out of what the full intent is. If an accessory apartment was approved, then the site plan and the building plan would get filed as part of the deed to understand, let everybody that wants to look at it or understand what happened here document that, and that's it.
and I assume,
Phase one.
do you do deed restrictions too? You know you have deed restrictions typically with, when you have septic systems? I didn't know, you have like, you're supposed to provide certifications, but there's no deed restrictions. I thought that was a little,
We have conditions of a decision, and
Yep.
that's kind of why I'm asking for it all to be documented, because we'd like to see it as it's planned to totally exist and not grow over time, not change over time, not add a trellis and an attached patio and
Oh, I get
lights
it.
and a fire pit and things like that. And those are all things that happen, but they're all things that then add to this accessory apartment, and we're trying to be, you know, respectful to your rights, but also respectful to all the other neighbors that might be. That's, I think, the path forward might be. Does the board have any other comments or questions along that line, or concerns, or? No?
No, I'm good with, yeah, good with your thoughts.
okay, so basically, just want to make sure. So basically, you want us to come back in, we'll submit a new plan showing a locust plan, which would be, you know, we'll give you a traditional with 1,000 feet showing you all structures that are around. We'll give you the uses, we'll show you all that. And then also basically just to show the full extent of what we're gonna do. If we're proposing to do something in back, show it now, because that's what the rule is. Because once I do it, that's all you're allowed for your accessory, show it. And then also do a utility plan showing you how we're going to actually connect, because that's how it has to be. We're not allowed a separate connection. Show the connection for the water, show the connection for the electric, and then show the connection for the septic.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And lighting.
I apologize.
And lighting.
Well, I'm sorry, yes, and show any house lighting. I'm assuming we're gonna have none, because it's pure residential use. But if they choose to put one on the house, or you know how you do it in the starts of driveways, we'll show that for you.
Okay, great.
Do you have any other questions?
Good.
Does the board have any concerns with what is going to be presented, either as a condition or as a continuance to wait to see what is presented in order to move forward? No. Jack?
No. And on those notes, I like the original submittal, the way it spelled it out step by step, like a checklist that covered, so we didn't have to spend 25 minutes going over each one of the things.
Yeah, I think
If that was you guys.
we'll talk about that for
Good job.
future accessory apartments.
Just easier to do, right?
Checklist.
Yes.
So is there a motion maybe to draft a favorable
Sure.
motion in this?
I'll make a motion to continue the meeting, so to have more additional information regarding the utility plan, lighting plan, and,
Locus.
yeah, focus.
Do you want to make a motion, favorable
Oh,
motion to draft
yeah, we'll
something
make-
so that we have the condition of what you just
Make a
said?
motion, yeah, make a motion to draft a favorable decision, based on the criteria we listed below.
All right, so we will start the process of drafting a decision. We are going to keep the public hearing open because more documentation is going to be submitted. We are going to continue this to next month's regularly scheduled board hearing meeting at 7:30 right here.
Okay.
14,
April 14th.
Thank you.
April
4/18.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Well,
Sorry.
I'll second the convoluted motion.
Hang on a
from Mario.
second. So I'm just explaining everything that happens. And then at that time, with the information received, because the meeting's open, we will open, we will hear, we will discuss, we will finalize a vote, and in the process of time, we will have a decision drafted to help move things along. So that's where we stand.
Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
All right.
enthusiastically.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Jack?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
appreciate
very
your time.
much,
Good luck with tonight's event.
Yep, we'll see you on April 18th. Next one. Please.
Those are all those.
Michael Edsel, Caitlin Monahan, 36 Northern Boulevard. The applicants are requesting a special permit finding for relief of section 97-4D, 5C002, upward extension of the Newbury zoning bylaws and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to raise the existing dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling in its place on a property located at 36 Northern Boulevard, Newbury, Mass. 01951, accessory use 03, lot 195.
All right. Good evening, it's the applicant here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Douglas DeShane, representing Caitlin Monahan and Michael Edsel, who are here this evening with me in the front row. Also with us, Eileen Graff from Graff Architects, sitting in the front row with us as well. I did put together a small PowerPoint presentation, and I have provided you guys a copy just in case you can't see the numbers from your seat. So if I could jump down to the next. Oops.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Again, Douglas DeShane, McFerrin and Nicholson, Caitlin and Michael are here. Everett Chandler is our engineer. He is not with us this evening, but Eileen is. Next slide, please, Martha. Thank you. So to give you a quick project summary, my clients are seeking to raise the pre-existing, non-conforming dwelling and to construct a new home in its place. As we were informed by the building inspector, construction of the new structure requires a special permit finding under the Newbury zoning bylaw section 97-4D 5C02 for an upward extension because we are raising the height of the roof. The proposed structure will eliminate the existing side yard setback nonconformity. It will reduce the existing front yard nonconformity and will actually significantly reduce the existing nonconforming FAR, which is at 31.1% currently, and we're actually reducing the FAR down to 26%. So a little unusual, or at least in terms of my experience, that folks are looking to reduce FAR and bring it closer to conformity. But I'm happy to report that is the case with this project. Next slide, please. Thank you. With respect to those pre-existing non-conforming conditions, the lot itself is pre-existing non-conforming. It contains 6,951 square feet, whereas we know 40,000 is required under the current bylaws. Frontage is at 90.55 feet, which is below the 125 feet requirement. The structure, as I mentioned, is pre-existing non-conforming in 3 respects. The front yard setback is at 9.4. The side yard setback is actually encroaching, the building on that side is actually encroaching onto the neighboring property by 4.5 feet. And we're going to be pulling that back to meet the 10-foot requirement. And the FAR, as I said, is currently at 31.1% with a 25% requirement. Should we go to the next slide, please? So to give you a little perspective, this is the front of the home at 36 Northern Boulevard, looking from across the street. You will notice that the left side, there is another home behind this home, essentially sits between this home and the beach. So that is in back. Next slide gives you a picture of our neighbor to the right. And then you can see there is quite a bit of distance before the next home down.
Quick, how does the house behind access? Is it on the right side?
Yes, that same driveway.
And is that an easement with the property on the right?
It's actually a street.
It is actually a street.
Yes.
So your house is in the street right now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, again, and I misspoke, it's encroaching in the street or the right of way. And then the next picture is looking to the left. As you can see, there is quite...
Excuse me, Counselor, can we go back a little, I think I drove by there. So this marked on the plan here where it says gravel drive, we're now saying that's a street, it's not a gravel drive? Am I looking at the correct side? It looks like the only right of way.
See,
Correct.
there's the picture.
That's correct.
So the gravel drive is a street, okay.
So there's a gravel drive existing, but if you look at the marks on this drawing, Jack, where it says gravel drive, the street is actually to the left, but the house is sitting in the street. So the gravel drive is pushing to the right.
Ah, very good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that
I
clarification.
love bumping around.
Check
Um,
11th Street.
This picture is again looking to the left of our home. You can see that you can again see a corner of that house that's technically behind 36, but that house to the left is 40. And you can see there's quite a bit of space and topography between our neighbors to the left and our property. And then I sort of spun around and I'm standing in front of the house. These are the 2 homes directly across the street behind us. And then the last picture is the 3 houses behind us to the left. So you've gotten a sort of a 360 view of the houses that surround the property. With respect to the houses on the beach side, our direct neighbors on either side, there is some significant amount of room between the structures. So, and with the movement of the house, we'll be creating more distance from that street right away and the neighbor to the right. If we could go to the next picture. That is a picture of the house to the rear. And you can see to the bottom right of that picture, that's where that gravel access way, right of way comes up. And so that's how the house behind us accesses. And there's parking right there for that home. Nothing we're doing will have any impact whatsoever on that right of way or people's ability to move. In fact, we're moving the house out of it, so it'll make it more open. Again, we're proposing to tear down the existing house in its entirety and construct a new single-family home. The lot, as I said, is pre-existing as to area and frontage, but we are not proposing any changes to the physical size and width of the lot. The proposed structure will eliminate that existing side yard setback from negative 4.5 to over 17 feet. The front yard nonconformity is currently at 9.4. We're going to increase or decrease the nonconformity by increasing the setback by about a foot. And then, as I said, interestingly, we are reducing the FAR from its current 31.1% to down to 26%. Otherwise, the proposed structure will meet all other applicable dimensional requirements in terms of the other setbacks, lot coverage, height, and all of the other dimensional requirements. The reason the finding is required, as I said earlier, is that the height of the new house will exceed the height of the existing structure, which is 21 feet. We are seeking to go to 32 feet, 0.5 feet, 32.5, which will be below the 35-foot height limitation. I guess I'll jump over to this, to the site plan. As you can see, the photo on the left is the existing conditions, and on the right is the proposed. You can see that technically we are, trying to move the lot toward the house towards the middle of the lot. We've tried to push it back a little bit, get it off the street. But as you notice from the pictures, we are dealing with topography in such that the property rises in the back. So to push it back any farther, and we really don't have a lot of room to push it back before we would start to, not be in conformity with the rear yard setback, but we would have to be digging into that dune, and we're not, we have to be very careful about requests to dig into the dune and push the house back any further. But we do feel we've made every effort to get it back farther than it was. I have, as you know, on that chart on the plan is a chart of the zoning table. If the board has any questions about the site plan, I certainly entertain those now before we move into, more architectural presentation. Yes.
So, thank you for the explanation. The rear yard setback of 21.9 is to the corner of the stair at grade that brings you up to the proposed deck. And then you have proposed generator hung on a platform. So you got plenty of room, but you're hanging something off the building that's physical and it's covering the ground. I would think if we just modify the application from 21.9 to 19.1, we're okay.
Oh, you mean that you feel that the hanging structure is where we should be measuring from?
Yes,
Oh, we're happy to put that distance on that.
it's man-made, it's physical, it's as physical as a stair or a porch that you would measure to. So,
Okay, we would be happy to do that, and as I think you point out, we'll still be conforming.
yep. And then on the building elevations, and we have the site plan, but the site plan does not have any grades on it. It looks like the mean grade is used in the proposed height, but there's nothing that sort of documents it as to the elevation of the high point, the elevation of the low point, and the easy math that shows the average.
On the site plan?
Well, if it was on the
reference
site
that.
plan, I could
Yeah.
read elevations and grades and I could make an interpretation. If it's on the elevations that you provided, I could do the math.
Sure.
Somewhere, I think we just need some documentation to prove out that you're using the mean building height, and at 32.5, you're not pushing up at, 34, 11 3/4, and, someone could complain, or someone could physically go out there and measure it, and you could be in trouble because something wasn't exactly accurate. So for the record, I think we just need to figure out how to document that.
Okay?
That's good. If I could I go to the matrix? It actually does, if I could speak to the first point you had, which was the rear.
Yep.
It does call out the 19.1 for the rear on the matrix.
The application says 21.9.
Oh,
So again,
Okay.
if we just take an application and
Okay.
we change it and initial it, we could understand that that's corrected.
I had a question on that too. It struck me at the time. It's not a problem, it's just curiosity. It says proposed generator on hung platform. Are we talking about cantilevering it off the underside of the deck, or is it on stilts, or how's it hanging?
because it has to, so it's trying to.
I'm aware it has to be up in the air, but how's that
Exactly.
physically happening?
So often we use bracket system or something of the sort to hang off a structure. It might be bracketed or hung, depending on how they detail.
From the side of the deck?
Yeah.
Interesting, thank you.
In order to minimize more pile structure at the ground level.
I was curious, thank you.
Okay,
Well, with that, I would like to move on to the architectural plans, and Eileen will come up and give you a quick overview of that.
Thank you, Doug. So I will just touch lightly on the architectural changes. As you can see in this drawing here, this is the existing structure. To note how generally speaking, how the FAR is at 31.1, it's essentially right now 3 stories. While not that tall in each story, but the ground level is functions as part of the structure, and so therefore that's how it gets that much in FAR. But as you can see, it's a structure like many on Plum Island that has evolved over time, but there are certainly lots of things that need a little attention. And actually, one thing I do want to point out, which will be helpful in this drawing, is there's a retaining wall that we are trying to work with here. Caitlin and Michael have gotten an RDA on that 2 years ago. 2 years ago, which they got approved for. They have not continued through with it because they knew there was going to be design work on the house. So we are submitting for an NOI for this work as shown. But that retaining wall came into play with a lot of this design, partly why we couldn't fully pull this house to full conformity is that we need to access or connect with our stair into the house, and therefore it was keeping it a little closer to the street. So so that's something you could see on the top right drawing. You could see in the dark heavy line at the grade, and that's depicting where the retaining wall is currently. And that condition allows for that parking that's on the street side. So if we can go to the next slide.
the parking is off of Northern Boulevard, or is it off of 11th Street?
It's off of Northern Boulevard, and there is currently parking up top as well.
So you will pull up to the retaining wall, but not under the structure to park?
Because it's narrow. That garage is narrow, so its primary structure, parking is in front of the retaining wall.
Okay. And then there'll be additional parking around the back?
No, that actually gets taken away.
Great.
And so while it's there now, it's something that will be removed from the water side.
Okay.
Okay. So here they are on floor plans, and here you can see in the bottom left drawing just what the chair has been referencing is there is a garage bay there, but it's very tight in its space. So, but what you can see, the bottom left, is the staircase currently coming up from that parking area. So generally speaking, we're recreating that same type of vertical transition, but with the building shifted inward on the lot. So the next slide, please. And here it is with the new structure on piles. This is happening behind that retaining wall. While the as reference, we are improving the front setback. On paper, it's showing as 1 foot back, but it's even more than that because the 1 foot goes to the end of the staircase, as that counts as part of the structure. But technically, the front face of the building is another 9 feet back. So it's really an improvement of 10 feet of moving the structure further back from Northern Boulevard. So you can see, this is the left side is facing Northern Boulevard, and the right side drawing is facing to the northwest. Next slide, please. And then the left drawing here is what faces the ocean side. And then the right drawing, this would be the feel as you're going up that street, 11th Street, to the right of the property. And here you could see the significant grade change from front to back on the property. And floor plans associated with it, again, just to orient you to the staircase on the left. And if you look back to the site plan, that runs alongside of the retaining wall that exists, and that's how we connect and enter the building. And the next slide, please. On the second floor, we're existing three-bedroom home, and we're continuing with that, as you can see in the 3 bedrooms on this second floor plan. And with that, I will
Okay.
pass it back to Doug.
Well, unless I have any questions.
If there are any questions at the
Questions?
moment, but happy to answer
Oh,
if they come along.
So with respect to our basis for requesting this special permit finding, as I've outlined here, certainly the reconstruction of this existing dwelling will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or to the Plum Island Overlay District. There are, in fact, I believe, a number of benefits. We are eliminating and/or reducing the existing nonconformities, and I do want to thank Eileen for pointing out that, I mentioned we're moving the front back a foot, but again, as she pointed out, that's to the stairs. But if you look at the face of the structure itself, we are actually moving it back significantly more, closer to 9 feet back. So, the face of the building will actually appear, instead of being 9.4 feet off, closer to 19, almost meeting. But we have to measure from those stairs that happen to point out to the road. So it's a little deceiving, my 1 foot improvement. We're certainly not exasperating or creating any new nonconformities at all. The proposed alteration and the increase in the height is consistent with the neighborhood and in the PID in general. If you notice from the pictures I provided, most of the structures around us appear to be, 2.5, some 3 stories in height. There are some homes that are 2 stories, clearly 2 stories, but they tend to be on the opposite side of the street. The proposed structure, as we've shown in putting it on pilings, is going to meet flood and dune requirements by allowing, floodwaters to move under the structure, but also to allow movement of sand. That is a very important impact. So the new structure will certainly have less environmental impacts on the dune, which certainly is very important. The proposed structure will not really impact anyone's views or cause shadowing to the adjacent buildings. As I showed you, our neighbors on either side are quite a distance away, and the structure behind us is, it would be casting shadows on us as opposed to the opposite. As far as the houses across the street, most of those are 2 stories, so they're looking into this house anyways. The small reduction in height we're proposing is not going to block off anyone's views across the street whatsoever. If they have views now, they will remain, but the ones directly across the street are looking into our building anyway. So we're not impacting shadows or adjacent buildings. Certainly, I feel this is an improved aesthetics for the property. It's going to increase the value of the property and therefore increase the value of surrounding areas, resulting in increase tax revenue for the town. The other thing that's important to note is that my clients have in fact reached out to all of their direct abutters. I believe 2 of our abutters have actually submitted letters of support,
Yes, they have.
including the 2 side neighbors. And the other neighbors were very supportive. None of them had any issues or questions. And so we have we've identified no issues with the neighbors. And again, my clients were nice enough to reach out to all of them, let them know what they were doing, and had very good results. I think there was one abutter that doesn't live on the property and is out of state, and they did reach out to them twice with no response, so we can only assume they have no real concerns with what we're doing, because they didn't get back to us. So with that, in conclusion, certainly this project will increase the functionality and sustainability of the home. The reconstructed home will not create new nonconformities or exacerbate any existing nonconformities, but in fact, as I've probably said too many times, we'll be eliminating and reducing nonconformities. The project's going to provide benefits to the neighborhood and the Plum Island community by improving the aesthetics, reducing environmental impacts of the structure on the beach, and increasing property values and just making not only this property a better situation, but the surrounding neighborhood. So we would certainly request your consideration in granting the finding requested. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that you would like to see us add the justification or the proof of the elevations. We're happy to do that, certainly if that's a condition. We're more than happy to meet that. I know Mr. Chandler, you know, he stamped these. I know he did the work, but I do agree with you, we should have put it on the plan, and I'll make sure that happens. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Board have any comments? Mario, Michelle, Jack?
Not at the moment.
The only question I have is, what's this gray pathway shown on the new plan? That's at the beach side of the house?
The diagonal?
Yeah, it's this,
Patio to this, it's
This
a
is a
walkway to
pathway?
the
It's a
stair.
Walkway,
it's just a
yes.
pathway.
So 11th Street would be the beach access, is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Ready? No questions? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor? No hands? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak against?
Is it possible just to ask a question?
You may ask a question. Please state your name and address.
Sure, Melissa Mashburn, 614th Street. My husband Tom Beal and I have lived on Plum Island since 1999. I guess my only question, and welcome to the neighborhood, is to what extent, having sat through a lot of the meetings and a lot of the thought that went into voting in the Plum Island Overlay District and having voted it in, to what extent do these sorts of proposals, and I believe Mr. Deschênes will also be speaking to a similar situation with the adjoining property, the cottage currently named Bethmere. To what extent does sort of raising, driving pilings, certainly there are environmental benefits, but as we all know, Plum Island is filled with non-conforming structures. That's why we have the Plum Island Overlay District. How does this set a precedent for further development on the island, and what other hoops will these lovely new people have to jump through in the town in order to bring their plans to fruition?
So the two things for the Plum Island, thank you for your question. For the Plum Island overlay was to control density as it relates to putting in a sewer system and then not having development checked to a certain degree as to overpower the system that they just put in. And since it was a joint system with Newbury and Newburyport, then there were controls in terms of dimensional requirements on the properties. There are lots of rights for homeowners that have homes. Nobody's taking away any rights, and if you have something that's existing, even if it looks ugly and even if it's over the lot line, you can't quite go if it's pre-existing non-conforming and enforce something to happen. So the metrics of the PIOD have several conditions, a lot on use, and then the dimensional requirements, and to control and improve the neighborhood going forward. Each property is looked at unto its own, and it is compared then to the immediate adjacent neighborhood for the improvements. If you happen to live in a part of Newbury that is dense or a little bit crowded, and your house is existing and you would like to build the house in a similar fashion, there might be a little bit more leeway in terms of matching the existing. I think we always look for improvements on all fronts, or as many fronts as possible, and if we deem that those improvements are not, are minimal or menial or not in the right direction, or the existing conditions and non-improvements actually then cause an exacerbation of conditions, height, typically in mass, then we find issues with it. So there are some houses that you would drive down and you would look at the house and you'd say like, wow, it doesn't have the setbacks, it doesn't have the yard setbacks, but it actually was a big improvement to what was previously there. It is, in a sense, equal to all its adjacent neighbors, and it was pre-existing as that, and so the rights that they have are the rights that they maintain, and it's within balance of the neighborhood. This house is obviously in the street. It's being moved back. It's meeting all the conditions. It's reducing the mass of the building in terms of the FAR. There are conditions of the front setback in which it's allowed to encroach or be less than the 20 feet required if the nearer lot line is established with the adjacent buildings. So in this case, and I drew a line on the drawing, if you look at the two buildings, we don't want a street that has a wild sawtooth effect to it. We'd rather have things in alignment for the consistency of just the consistency of the neighborhood. So there are within and behind the adjacent lot line of the two existing buildings. They are moving the building back. They are moving the building over. The fact that the building is not on 11th Street and people can access 11th Street, then it is actually improving and opening up access. The fact that the house is being aligned with the house behind is less detrimental to the people across the street because they actually have their view improved. So there are lots of pluses here. And the controls in going to the PIOD is what you have for existing, whether you're altering the existing, whether you're raising the existing, or whether there was a catastrophe that forced your hand in which to do something. There's different sections. They're all fairly similar, but they are different. And that's how we have guidance to, and good architects understand that and make a favorable condition. You know, people that try to maximize and then get a little bit more is not seen as favorable in terms of setting a precedent or being the biggest in the neighborhood. So that those have been not successful or not as successful in the past. So long-winded, I hope I answered your question.
Helpful, good context, thank you.
Okay, so does the board have any comments? We just went through it, and I kind of went through it. I don't have any issues, and I think this is, in my opinion, quite favorable because it does move it off the lot lines. It is set back from the street, and it's less detrimental than it previously was, and it's positioned more in the center of the lot, which is great. If the application just needs a slight tweak, and if conditional, the elevations of the building could add just to prove out that the mean height of the average grade is used in terms of determining the height, and they're not pushing up against it, so I can't see that there would be any issue there. That's my 2 cents.
Let's make a motion.
All right. I'll make a motion to draft a favorable decision based on correcting the rear setback on the application and additional information related to elevation of the mean building height.
Great. Any discussion on that or anything to add?
Good project, I like it.
Good, is there a second? Take that as a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank
So
you very
we
much
will
for your time.
Draft the decision. Again, we will keep the public hearing open because you will be submitting a new document to us. If you can get it to us sooner, that would just make our discussion all the more quicker when we see you again. So, so we will, in a way, enforce, continue the hearing to April 18th, 14th.
April 18th.
Oh, my bad.
18th, right here at Town Hall at 7:30.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, Bill, when you're ready.
Yeah, next door neighbor. Okay. David Toomey, manager, 40 Northern Boulevard LLC. The applicant is requesting a special permit finding for relief of section 97-4D5C02, upward extension of the Newbury zoning bylaws, and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling in its place on the property located at 40 Northern Boulevard, Newbury, Mass. 01951, accessories map U03, lot 190.
All right, is the applicant here?
Yes,
Here we
Mr.
go.
Chairman. Members of the board, good evening. Sorry, just gotta grab a pen here. I guess I have a quick question before I begin. You know, I generally bring you a copy of the slides. Do you find them helpful, or can you read, you know?
Sometimes we have a failure of audio-visual.
All right, I just didn't want to waste paper if you didn't think it was necessary, but I have no trouble doing it, you know? With my eyes, I need it this close, so.
I would agree that if it's smooth sailing, you wouldn't have to do it, but if you ran into some rough waters and
Yep.
someone else wanted the information, it would be at hand.
Great.
I think it's a necessary evil.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, Douglas Duchesne from Finneran and Nicholson, representing the applicant, 40 Northern Boulevard LLC. Daniel Toomey is the manager. Daniel is here with me this evening, along with his mother. Again, Everett Chandler is our engineer. Everett's not with us tonight, but Eileen Graff from Graff Architects is here as our architect. Again, to give you a project summary, Mr. Toomey is seeking a special permit finding to tear down his pre-existing non-conforming structure, construct a new home. He will not be creating any new non-conformities. He will not be exacerbating any new non-conformities. However, he will be actually reducing the lone pre-existing structural non-conformity. So an effort's been made to reduce the only structural non-conformity. And again, as was the case previously, because we are increasing the height, upward extension, Mr. Burnett has said that we need a special permit finding from this board under 97-4D5C02. To give you an understanding of the existing conditions, the lot itself is pre-existing non-conforming. It currently has an area of 21,021 square feet, so one of the biggest lots that I've had the pleasure of working with on Plum Island, but it still does not meet the 40,000 square foot requirement. Frontage on the lot is 80 feet, whereas 125 feet is required, so again, a pre-existing non-conforming lot. As I said earlier, the structure actually only contains one pre-existing non-conformity, and that is that the front setback is currently at 11.3 feet. Otherwise, the structure is in conformity with all other dimensional requirements. So, mother, please. Here is a picture of the structure. You can see from Northern Boulevard, looking straight at the structure. And then the next slide gives you a view to the right. So you can see the garage that was in the first picture. And interestingly enough, the home to the right is 36 Northern, which we were just discussing. And you can see the house that sits behind 36 Northern. There is no structure behind 40 Northern. The next picture gives you a view to the left of 40 Northern. You can see we have a structure to the left. They too have a small garage space, but they are one of the taller buildings in the area. And then across the street, we've got these two structures looking across the street sort of to the left, and the next picture is looking across the street to the right. So those are the four houses across the street. You'll see they range from probably 1.5 story to a 2.5 story. If we could slide on. So our proposed structure, again, they're proposing to tear down the existing structure in its entirety and replace it with a new single-family home. The lot is pre-existing non-conforming, as I discussed, and we are not proposing any changes to the lot. The structure, the proposed structure will slightly reduce the pre-existing non-conforming front setback by 0.3 feet. Otherwise, it is in full conformance with all dimensional requirements, setbacks, lot coverage, FAR, and height requirements. In this situation, we're going from an existing structure height of 21.2 feet to 33.7 feet. But again, less than the 35-foot requirement. The next plan is the site plan. As you can see, we are again looking to center the project onto the lot somewhat. We're eliminating that garage structure that you saw to the right. It's depicted on the picture to the left. And in doing so, again, we are increasing that front setback by quite a bit. But I think if you look at the design of the new home on that side, there's actually a jog in the face of the building, and we're measuring the distance to the front of the stairs. Again, those center stairs, but the reality is that the front of the building is going to jog, and maybe Eileen will give you a little more information on that. But what I'm trying to say is that we're taking a building that's, currently 11 feet off at its closest facial point, and we're actually, pushing it back and irregulating the front so it jogs. So I think that will give an appearance that the building's not as close to the street as it is. It will give some relief to that physical look. But in any event, we are slightly improving the existing situation. As again, I have to say, and one of the other things is that controls redevelopment in the PIOD is certainly the Conservation Commission and the impacts that you're having on dunes and the sand, associated sand. So while it may seem an easy task to move a building back, you're moving it closer to the ocean and deeper into the dune, and that is certainly frowned upon by Conservation and DEP. So we're trying to balance those concerns. With that, I guess I'll again ask Eileen to come up and give you probably a better understanding of what I was trying to explain about the front of the building.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, so I think in essence, this is the existing structure, but what I want to convey most is that the existing condition is a collection of buildings. We've got the garage structure, as you saw in the photograph, less visible in some of the photographs. There's a shed behind the garage on the right, and then the actual structure as you see in those drawings. So it's really sort of a cluster of different elevations and different forms, etc. A little bit of a nightmare in the middle in a practical sense as far as grade and such. Coming and going from the house is really sort of, a difficult thing given as you look at the grade change and you're literally going between those buildings up to the front door. So it's one of the things we really want to work on with this new building. So by raising this structure, as you see here, and creating one cohesive building. So if we can slide, this is the existing plan demonstrating how it exists today. 4 bedrooms, very clean, actually, kind of admirable, these four bedrooms up top. In the way people used to summer out there, but nonetheless needing a little more room to meet modern day needs. So if we slide to the next, this is the proposed structure, split up into 2 floors with the ground level providing 2 parking spots below. And then, as mentioned, Doug had mentioned the center stair going in that's the point in which on the site plan was given the front setback line. But really, the building itself is approximately 3 feet back from that first riser of the stair. But more important on this drawing to me is actually the sort of negotiating the vertical change. So. The drawing to the left is a section through the middle of the building, trying to show how we're going to enter the building and then how it relates to the water side, which is the higher grade, so which is the living spaces. So we go one more slide, and we can work our way around the building. So the left drawing is the side on the towards the center of Plum Island, and then the left heading towards the lighthouse side. Here you can see the 2 different floors. On the lower level, we've created some, I always refer to it as skirting, but some form of some kind of enclosure to help minimize some of the winds, the sands, to some degree. And then the next slide, and this one will face the water. Here you can see the decks that are on the water side. Some of them are cantilevered to an extent to help create some more dimension while still allowing some growth for vegetation below. And in the center you can see out of the level of the roof, we have a small balcony coming off the top. And then here are the floor plans associated with that design. From the ground level, I wanted to comment, we do have for Marilee Toomey, the owner of the home, we wanted to allow for accessibility and ease. So we have an elevator, a pitless elevator proposed in the center core that's traveling adjacent to the staircase that's traveling up the center. So I just wanted to point that out, but mainly on the next slide, just sort of where it falls in between the 2 car bays. So that here you can see where the elevator comes down. And then on the right, the top level, how you access that roof balcony. But more or less, trying to create that cottage feel with the shingle styles and some outdoor space. And again, sort of making a cohesive structure so that Marilee can have her family and grandchildren visit. And with that, if there are any questions regarding the architecture, I'm happy to answer them now or later as they come along.
Thank you. The board have any questions?
The elevator doesn't go to the house. Right?
It does not.
It just comes over.
Jack,
I'm processing.
Michelle?
Nothing else in there.
Okay, again, the elevation of the mean grade on the building is not showing the lowest to the highest in terms of setting a point. 2, you have a wood planter is on the left side or northern side that's along the right of way, and it appears to go over the property line.
And that goes away.
That goes away. Good. Goes away. Okay. And just the way the application is written, that the house is, or the property is in an LLC, so a manager for the owner, is that how this is being presented? Okay. And have you been before COM yet?
We are filing for the deadline next week, for the upcoming.
Right. I will open up to the public. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak against?
Yes, I'm Dirk Casagrande, and my wife there and I own 42, number 42, the neighboring property. And we were just wondering how much further into the dune this structure will be than the existing structure. I didn't quite get that when it was explained where the new structure will be located.
Mr. Chairman, I could potentially answer that.
You can answer that, or you can have...
While I don't have a number, sir, let me make sure I'm right on this. The shed that sits behind the garage, I guess on the opposite side of you,
Yes, yes.
the back of that shed is approximately, well, almost identical to where the back of the house. So, and actually, if Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll give you a picture so you can see it.
No, I understand what you're saying, yes.
So here's that shed. You can see the back of the house goes no closer than that existing shed. And I guess there's a patio back there, so it's really just about to that patio. So we're not really pushing the bulk of the structure back. There will be a cantilever deck that goes back a little bit more. But the structure itself is no farther than the current deck and the current shed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Presumably, the Conservation Commission will consider all this.
Without question, sir.
Yeah, that's why we asked. It's not our purview to weigh in or to use anything about COMCOM unless we see something so grossly represented that we can't help ourselves. But what we would do is typically we make conditions, and that's why I asked if they haven't gone through COMCOM and a decision was made, then we would put a condition that it needs to move through COMCOM, and if anything changes on the plan or to the house, then they need to come back before us and resubmit. So we have I do have a check via COMCOM in making decisions.
If you like, I'd just give you the last of my slides. Well, you know, I have to.
Right? You have to, yep.
I do want to put on the record our justifications.
Yep.
Again, we are not going to be substantially more detrimental. We are, in fact, reducing the only nonconformity there is. We cannot eliminate it, but every inch better is better. And I think, as we've pointed out from a visual perspective, there will be a significant difference. We're not exasperating or creating nonconformities. The proposed alteration and increase in height is consistent with the neighborhood. As we now know, you know, the house to the one side is going to be within a foot or two of this proposed structure, and the house to the other side, which I believe is yours, sir, is of equal height. So we're not going to be the tall, we'll be nice and straight. Again, we're going up on pilings, which is beneficial for both the sand movement and floodwaters. So we're going to be providing environmental improvements for the dune and protecting the beach. We're not going to be imposing any shadows or impacting views. As I pointed out, the two houses directly across are you know, 1.5 stories and about 2. So they're not looking over our roof as it currently sits, so we're not going to be blocking a view that they have, because as is the case along that area, the dune goes up from the street. So We're not going to be eliminating views that don't exist. Certainly, I think this is a great improvement to the building. It's going to look beautiful and will certainly help in the neighborhood and the aesthetics of the neighborhood in general. Increase tax revenue, and although my client was not able to speak with this gentleman, he obviously has been in contact with the folks at 36. So we haven't received any comments or concerns from any of our abutters. I think most people look at this as an improvement, and given the fact that we are working within the PIOD, I did want to mention, although we're going up in FAR, we're still only going to be at 16%. So they're not overdoing, given the size of the lot and what they're doing. They're going to keep it down to 16.4, I believe. So it's going to increase the functionality and the sustainability, and it's going to provide a retirement home for Mr. Toomey's mother, and hence the elevator. It's not going to create new nonconformities or exasperate any existing. It will reduce the only existing nonconformity. It's going to provide benefits to the neighborhood, as I've discussed. We feel that it will not be detrimental, but in fact, again, a general improvement and improvement of the area. So it's interesting that we're finding two side by side. Can't say I've ever done that before, but I think both clients, especially including this one, has made every effort to make sure that this proposed project meets your rules and regulations, and we're not pushing the envelope on anything. So appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments or questions?
I guess the thing that's bugging me is, I'm not convinced we can't go back 8 feet and eliminate all the nonconformities, which is kind of what the other project that you referenced did. I'm not saying this one isn't a big improvement, but it sure looks like the only thing that will be over, it doesn't clearly delineate where the edge of the dune is, but it sure sounds like the only thing that will be over it was something called a proposed second floor balcony. So that will be hanging over.
It's going to be cantilevered. Yes.
Cantilevered over, that's great. So, you know, what do I care if the cantilever's over? I mean, I don't know where the sand is, but you know what I'm saying? I mean,
The entire
is there an
structure,
architectural reason why it can't go back 8 feet that I don't?
there isn't an architectural, but I will tell you, and please help me if I'm misspeak. I mentioned the fact that the house has been put back to the sort of the line of the existing ground level deck and the back of the shed. It's conservation that is not going to allow us to push beyond that already disturbance line in the dune. I mean, this sits in the dune. It's not a question of, well, when does the sand start? The whole thing is the dune.
I could only see it from the street side of the road.
Yeah, and the Conservation Commission will not let you put a structure closer to the water or to impact dune that's already, dune. But they will allow you to go to the limit of existing disturbance. So that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's why we aligned the back of the structure with the existing ground floor. Now, you are correct in saying, but then doesn't your deck go beyond that? They don't consider that an impediment to the dune because it's, 8 feet up. So we're not actually in the dune. So what they want to look at is where is that front face of the structure itself.
But the house we just approved went back on the lot, didn't it? Which is closer to the water. What am I missing?
And it has a lot to do with the fact that the previous property has a lot of invasive vegetation there. So that was actually an area that we could push towards without the conservation having concern about that. They have no problem with that and I say this because we haven't been in front of them yet, but this is with working with the environmental consultant. So that's the guidance we've been given. With this property, it's about the amount of disturbance. So if you look at that poche of where the proposed house is, we're generally speaking sitting right on top of the existing structures for a reason, because anytime you push further away, we're disturbing more. And so we're really at a balance there, and even with the cantilever decks, that is actually proposed to be a see-through, I'm using the wrong word.
Pass-through.
A pass-through so that it will encourage the growth of the vegetation below. So it's even with that cantilever, it's with certain restrictions to what type of cantilever that is. So we're in a sort of teetering location. Believe me, we'd love to be closer to the water, but this is the most feasible location to be approved.
And if I could point out, because you did ask about the prior application, recall that that application, that site has a house behind it, and their driveway and parking, or their parking is behind it. So the area behind that house is previously disturbed. And as I pointed out, it's filled with invasive. So they have no trouble with us pushing it back into that previously disturbed area and then eliminating all the invasives that remain. This is actually ocean front, right? This is beachfront. So I would like to be able to ask, given the size of this lot, I agree with you 100%. I'm sure they'd like to push it back 50 feet. But conservation is, we have enough experience with them that, you know, we're going no farther than where that existing structure.
Perhaps I'm in the minority on the board, but I'd rather have the Conservation Committee say no rather than us approve something that doesn't conform on the grounds that we think they might say no. But I'm happy to stand corrected.
It's not our jurisdiction, and if they choose to put other conditions on this, then it will be back before us.
But the front setback is our condition, right? So if we approve it, then there's,
Yes, it would be helpful, very helpful for Mr. Chandler to put grades on his site plans. And if the grades are on the site plan, we might find that the back of the building is at the same elevation as the house next to us, even though the house next to us, proposed house next to us is pushed back farther, they might just be at the same elevation.
okay,
So,
I'm with that.
and also, kind of knowing that these two plans and the same guy was drafting the plans, it wouldn't hurt to at least show a site plan of what was proposed next door, with the understanding that we made a judgment on the last application via the existing conditions of this site, and the fact that you're slightly improving this site, slightly improving that site, and we are looking for the existing neighboring houses in which to find that line. And so that, something like that would be very helpful as a diagram to make an argument of how, Concom aside, that the position of the house via the 20-foot setback and a further established building line is made closer to the road, because those structures, even though one's proposed, I understand that if he's going to stamp a drawing, he's not going to put something that's proposed on an adjacent lot, but it would be a great diagram in which to make the part of this presentation, whatever. That said, Jack, that the line of the house in 36, the line of the house before, all appear to be about equal with the 10 or 11 feet setback.
Okay, it's our last chance to get the front setback, right? That's why I was bringing it up.
True, and again, if they had proposed this to be 50 feet, we'd be back here talking about it's 50 feet, it's too far back, it needs to be closer to the road to be more in keeping with the neighborhood, so that there is a line of buildings and not these random gaps, and you know, there's more consistency is what we're after. And the existing house to the left or to the north is shown partial. It's a little bit back, but it doesn't seem like it's all that much back when you draw a line between the existing and the proposed new, and understanding what was proposed, that the front is within keeping. And again, we are looking for improvements on all fronts, and we're obviously minimal improvements, and maximizing conditions aren't seen as favorable in terms of improvements to the neighborhood. So,
Fair enough.
I don't see the same issue that you have.
Okay.
And we do have a check for however Concom is going to review this, that anything that does happen will come back before us for your purview.
Fair enough.
Okay. Michelle?
No, I mean, I think part of the improvement also is by tucking in the parking underneath. I mean, I know that your garages right now are underneath, but I would assume you probably don't use those all the time, that you parallel park in front. And so I think by tucking that parking underneath, that's already an improvement on the street. You know, so many locations along there run parallel parks, and it's kind of a hindrance, I think, to the environment on that road. So I think that helps me with the setback, that's not quite meeting the requirement. Makes me feel a little better about it, but.
Is there also a sidewalk in front of the property right now?
No.
Sidewalk, no.
No.
Looks like there's nothing, you know, just sort of.
There's the beach access on the left. That's why you see the path shooting off of that.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to take a look at that picture,
Yeah, that's,
it's that standard sand, you know?
yeah,
People just
it's
pull.
very typical along the street here. And I think, you know, that you can sort of push that parking level back helps.
Thought about the same thing. So, no more questions from the motion we had?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to draft a favorable decision based on additional information related to elevation of the mean building height, grades, to include grades, and site plan of 40 Northern Boulevard.
Proposed, you know, the site plan of the proposed dwelling, is that legitimate to do, reasonable to do?
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, we're drafting a favorable decision. If you would like to see some more backup documentation, and you can certainly ask for it.
Walk through the line we were talking about.
Okay, so, is there any discussion on that motion? No? Is there a second?
Yep, a second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we will draft a motion to keep the public hearing open to April 18th at 7:30 here at Town Hall. We will request that you update the building elevations and show how the mean height is calculated in relation to the high and the low point, and the mean point is in the middle. And we're also going to ask for a diagram. It doesn't have to be a stamped survey, but it should show the adjacent property, this proposed house, and it should show the proposed house at 36 Northern,
And the setbacks.
and the setbacks.
Yeah, maybe we could superimpose something on a Google map.
However, you just want to show that the line of houses along Northern
Relatively
Boulevard for several
consistent.
properties on either side of 36 and 40 are within a pre-existing quote line. That's what we'd like to see.
All right, we will do that, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one. Okay, Tim and Ann Drost, 76 Northern Boulevard, property at 80 Northern Boulevard. The Office of Attorney Jeffrey Welch has filed a notice of appeal on behalf of Tim and Anna Drost of 76 Northern Boulevard against the Town of Newbury's Director of Inspection Service for a zoning enforcement decision dated November 29, 2023, issued to the wards of 80 Northern Boulevard are being legally deficient. This appeal is pursuant to MGL 40A 8 and 15 and the Town of Newbury zoning bylaws 9711B with the regards to the property located at 80 Northern Boulevard, Plum Island, Newbury, Assessors Map U03181. And this is continued from 2/15. They're asking for it continued to 4/18th meeting.
Is there anybody here for 80 Northern, 76 Northern? Just the letter is all we have?
We're all together.
We're all together?
That was continued to 4/18. Sorry, I sent you guys the email from Jeffrey Wolf's.
Yep.
They requested a continuance.
Okay, so does anybody have any issues with making a continuance, and is there a motion to make a continuance?
I'll make a motion to continue this meeting for April 18th at 7:30 regarding the Tina and Anna Drost property.
Second.
Their application,
Yep.
their application of administrative decision on 80 Northern Boulevard. Okay. Is there a second?
Yeah, I seconded it, I'm sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the motion, the hearing is continued to April 18th, 7:30 here at Town Hall.
Okay. Mark and Teresa Ritchie, 10 Fordham Way. The applicants are requesting a special permit finding for the relief of section 97 4D 5C01, increase in square footage of the Newbury zoning bylaws and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use projects in order to raise the existing structure at 8 Fordham Way, merge the two lots at 8 Fordham Way and 10 Fordham Way into one lot, and construct an addition on the existing single-family dwelling to remain on the newly combined lot for the property located at 10 Fordham Way, Assessors Map U01, Lot 20, and 8 Fordham Way, Assessors Map U01, Lot 21, Plum Island, Newbury. And this is continued from 2/15. And the applicants are represented by Matt Steino from Millennium Engineering.
Good evening to the chair and all the members. My name is Bill Sheehan. I practice law in Peabody, Massachusetts. And tonight it's my pleasure to represent Mark Ritchie and Teresa Ritchie. They are the owners of and live at 10 Fordham Way. And Mr. Ritchie, in his capacity as trustee of the 8 Fordham Way Realty Trust, owns the property adjoining at 8 Fordham Way. And as was just indicated in the reading of the advertisement, the proposal here is to demolish the existing two-family house at 8 Fordham Way, to combine the lots at 10 and 8 Fordham Way, and then on the combined lot to add to the house that now is at 10 Fordham Way, such that it would extend in a southerly direction and cover a portion of 10 and also a portion of 8 Fordham Way. The property, of course, as you know, is governed by the Plum Island Overlay District zoning bylaw. The structure at number 10 is non-conforming as to a number of dimensional requirements. They are laid out in the zoning table that is on the plan that Millennium Engineering has submitted as part of the application. The building commission determined that a special permit was required because we are proposing to extend or alter the footprint of the house at 10 Fordham Way. Therefore, the Ritchies seek a special permit based on a finding that the alteration and extension as proposed is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or to the Plum Island Overlay District. So we're here looking for a finding and special permit under section 97-4, capital D5, small d. Not only would the proposal, if it's allowed, not substantially more detrimental, it would be beneficial, we would suggest, to both the neighborhood and the district for a number of reasons. The first is that it will eliminate a non-conforming two-family use at 8 Fordham Way, thus advancing the goal of eliminating non-conforming uses. Secondly, it reduces the intensity of the use of the combined lots from 3 dwelling units to 1 dwelling unit. It eliminates the structure at 8 Fordham Way, which is not on pilings, in favor of the addition to 10 Fordham Way, which will be constructed on pilings. It eliminates a non-conforming structure at 8 Fordham Way, which advances the goal of reducing the number of non-conforming structures. It eliminates a non-conforming lot at 8 Fordham Way, advancing the goal of reducing density. It eliminates 2 of the present non-conformities at 10 Fordham Way. As to lot coverage, the enlarged structure on a combined lot will result in lot coverage of less than the maximum 20%, 19.2%. And as to the south side setback, that setback will increase from 6.6 feet to 21.9 feet, and thus we will satisfy the south side setback. In addition, what we're proposing reduces the number of present nonconformities at 10 Fordham Way, and the frontage of the combined lot is more than doubled from 43 feet to 100 feet. So we don't meet the 125 feet, but we're a whole lot closer. The lot itself, of course, increases substantially in size from 7,648 square feet to 16,215 square feet. Again, more than double. We also get closer to the goal of 25% of the floor to area ratio as we reduce that ratio from 33.9% to 30.5%. It reduces the number of bedrooms on the property from 7, the 4 at 8 Fordham now, and 3 at 10, reducing that number from 7 to 5. And it will result in the replacement of a building constructed in 1953 with a newly constructed addition. So for all of those reasons, what we're doing is not only not substantially more detrimental, it is beneficial. Happily, all of our neighbors agree. In fact, they have all indicated their agreement with what we're proposing to do in writing. Finally, the board may make the requested finding that we're asking for, because the structure will be farther from the street, 5.4 feet, than the existing structure at 8 Fordham Way, which is 3.2 feet. And as I said, the north side setback remains the same, south side setback becomes conforming, total number of bedrooms will be reduced. So if you are so inclined, you have the power to grant the relief. We would ask you to do so. With me tonight is Matt Steinel from Millennium Engineering, and also the architect, Andrew Sidford. And I'll be guided by the board as to how much you'd like to hear from them, or if you want to hear from them, or just ask questions of us, however you wish to proceed.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions? In a moment,
I guess I went over the plans pretty thoroughly. I guess one procedural question, do we have a denial on this, Chrissy? Did Peter actually deny something?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed that.
Because of
So
the, because of
for
the,
extension?
no, because of the alteration of the footprint. So you've heard, if you're trying to go higher, or if you're trying to alter the footprint, in either of those events, you can't do it as of right, you need a special permit.
Very good.
either meet or less is one way, if you exceed, it's another, and so he's denying on the exceeding part of it.
I missed that part, thank you.
So this is the, keeping the existing structure and adding onto it.
That's correct.
So I think right out of the gate, understanding everything you said, I think we have a big issue with the height of the building. Your existing roof height is 45 feet from the mean grade to the top of the arched, I don't know, cupola or whatever that is on it. And so that is fairly large. And although you're combining two existing and adding new, the structure is extremely large and is so for the FAR that's being reported. Understanding that you're making a slight improvement from 33.9 to 30.8. The height is listed at 33.75, which is an actual. it's to, the zoning says the height is to the highest roof structure, and when you have something covering, when you have a roof form, that is the highest roof.
So the addition that we're proposing is within your 35-foot height limitation. We agree that the existing house, which has been constructed with permits, is listed as 44 feet.
If I could quickly, I just wanted to point out that the existing structure that's on 10 was constructed in 2012, so well within the time frame when the PIOD was in effect and permits were issued by the building department. I believe what you see on our plan is an interpretation of the building height based on how we've looked at it today, but the original surveyor engineer who did this produced plans that satisfied the building inspector at the time, and they issued the permit in 2012 for that to be constructed. So that's how Millennium interprets the height of the existing structure. It may not have been the exact interpretation of the building inspector at that time, but it's existing, and so what we're proposing is not to exacerbate that or make that any worse. It's actually to eliminate other nonconformities and to show that the addition itself is not going to make that any worse.
Could I comment to that?
Sure.
My name's Mark Ritchie. I'm the owner at 10 and 8 Fordham Way. When we built the original house, we did comply with all the building requirements, including the height, and the way they measured the height was to the mean height of the roof, but they did not count the cupola because it was under the square footage for an allowable cupola at the time. And that's how you get the top of that cupola appearing to be so much higher than the allowable 35 feet. But that, if you look on the original drawings that were, we went through all these same meetings, the same approvals. We did meet all the requirements of the building and the ZBA and committees at the time on the existing house. So there's no change to the existing house itself.
It could have been at the time I started or before my time, but I was around probably at the end of 2012 or maybe the beginning of 2013. And going back, I'm just pointing it out, that going back to the definition, it says highest roof. We've had conditions of stairs and landings, and whether landings are levels, but the roof is the roof. And we don't have a minimum square foot size. At the time, that may have been what was discussed and what was judged. Just pointing out that to what our standards are right now, that existing roof is quite high. That's all.
Fair enough. Well, we have no intention of demolishing the existing house at 10 Fordham Way, but the house at 8, the new house, the new addition is within all those requirements, I believe.
It looks like it's 27'6" the mean of the addition.
Right.
And the existing house that's being demolished is how many bedrooms?
The existing house has 4 bedrooms.
4 bedrooms, 2 units.
So we're going from 4 to 5, 4 and 3, we're going from 7 to 5?
Correct.
Is the roof structure that looks like it has a trellis over it, is that enclosed? Or is that
No,
open?
it's just an open trellis. It's a roof deck up there.
And are those solar panels along the roof, or what? what-
Yes.
Okay. And then, for this part of the deck that's away from on the right-hand side, that's got more of a solid sort of handrail or parapet to it.
It depends on the grade. It doesn't have to be a handrail if it's less than 30 inches above that. So the big handrail where it's above 30. I'm sorry, you're talking about the balcony or the first floor deck?
I'm talking about the deck. As you come out of the existing house, you're on a deck that has a trellis over it, and you step out onto another deck. Is that true?
Are you up at the roof level?
I'm at the roof level.
Oh, no, there's railings on both sides. To
And they're
36 inches.
And they're solid?
No, they're open railing. I mean, they're railings to match the existing house.
So this is the roof deck here.
Correct.
This is roof, or is this roof deck?
That's a glitch in the computer because it's a 3D model, so that's the cathedral ceiling in the bedroom below.
Okay.
The elevation's still a little bit better, but that's accurate, but it's a little misleading.
But there is a deck that you can walk out here?
No.
No,
That's just the roof. The deck is hidden back behind, so you really won't see the deck.
okay.
You'll see that barrel vault, which is
Yep.
designed to match the house, but the
That's
deck
why
is.
I got it. I was having trouble putting two and two together as to
Yes,
why am I seeing columns if you
yep,
can,
fancy new software.
Yeah.
Doesn't always tell what we want to.
let's not get started on that. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Jack?
You know, I don't wanna ruin my reputation, but I'm kinda getting a warm and fuzzy feeling about this project.
Because of the timing and the way in which this was submitted to the town, we had actually initially already filed with conservation and received all of our approvals there. We thought we were good on the zoning side, and so there was several months in between when we received our conservation approval to when we officially were notified by the building department that we needed to come before you. So that's been done, closed out, recorded at the registry, and we got to this stage by applying for the building permit and receiving that denial.
We've been working with you for a long time. But it's back and forth.
Yeah.
I
Apologize
just
for
didn't see a
that.
copy of the letter, I'm sure it's there.
It is a part of the application.
He had originally suggested we didn't need to go for the CBA, so we moved forward on other fronts.
In talking to the building inspector on other matters, he did mention that this had been back and forth.
The challenge. The challenge.
Yes. So the mean grade is obviously shown, clearly marked. Bedrooms, height.
What's the finished material where this rigid insulation half is shown? Is that skirting, is that trellis?
Sorry, I'm not sure what, I'm trying to look.
This hat, yeah, sure, this half right here, what does that represent?
Oh, that was also there's nothing, we're gonna take down as far as we can our open screen to down to 2 feet above grade. That's just, it doesn't go down as low as that.
So there'll be some sort of skirting there though, yeah.
And the front and the side A is the left, that's the existing building.
Correct.
And you show existing photos.
That's okay.
I'm not sure where they even came from.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I think it was just a.
Is the 5.4 for the front setback, is there an existing, is that existing or is that new?
The 5.4 that's shown here is to the existing, sorry, to the proposed, and on sheet 1 of the existing, you can see that the structure was 3.2.
So, okay,
So it's a slight improvement.
yeah. So it was really an overhanging porch. Okay. guess nitpicky, but on the site plan, you list on the applications, but the site plan doesn't have the rear setback of 101 and the side existing setback dimension, unless somehow I missed it somewhere.
On the application,
On the site plan itself, I mean, if you have it on the existing, but it's not on the new site plan.
on the proposed, correct, because the existing structure on 10 still remains the closest point, so we showed just the closest points. So on this one here, on the proposed, the rear setback, we have at 123 to the rear lot line, and then on the side, we have it at 21.9.
So you're combining the lots, you're making an addition to an existing building.
Correct.
So then, I think I would consider the whole building as the building, and the setbacks should be measured to, if somebody in the future looks at this, they're gonna open this up, and they're gonna look at it and say, oh, the property's 123 feet back, but that's not the farthest, that's not the dimension.
Agreed, no, agreed, the closest point being the existing structure here at 101.7.
So, do we have an update, or do I not?
It should be on sheet 1, existing conditions.
Right, but, okay.
But you say what you'd like to see the
Yeah,
dimension
I
here.
think we want to file one document, one site plan with a decision as opposed to multiple plans and have somebody try to work between them.
Understood.
To say that this is moving forward, this is it.
We can absolutely add that dimension there.
So-
I made the assumption that it's sheet 1 or 2 in the entire plan set would be part of the decision, but if you want to see it all on that one sheet, that just clarifies things, eliminates confusion in the future,
Thinking
that's
of people
reasonable.
looking at it and not seeing or finding something and understand what you have here, but then they look at the second plan and they see the two houses, they look at this plan, they see an addition.
And the dimension doesn't match the table.
And we'd like the dimensions also on the site plan to match the application so that the two go hand in hand. The technicality, but we'd like to get stuff so that if it gets challenged or if it comes back in another 11 years or so, then it's all on the plan.
Understood, make it clean, make it easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Along the same lines, is the, right now it's listed as two separate owners, are we gonna have one? We combine the lot, we have one owner?
One owner.
Because and which one is that? Is it the 8 Fordham Way Trust, or is it the,
10.
looks like you and your
10
wife?
Yeah.
It'll be 10 Fordham Way Trust?
It'll be 10 Fordham Way.
Well, what we're going to want to do, just from a legal perspective, we want to keep those lots in separate ownership until hopefully we receive the relief that we're looking for, the appeal period runs, then we can combine the ownership of those two lots.
I see, okay. And it will be under
Yes.
whatever it is, okay. Thank you.
So I understand that the existing FAR was over, the existing condition, and it's still over by, quite a bit, the proposed. I mean, when you look at the site plan, density-wise, it's fairly dense. Even when you combine the two lots, was there an attempt to get closer to what the allowed FAR is? We understand you made it slightly better, but not much.
I think the answer to that is from a practical perspective, given Mr. Ritchie's situation where he's got, I think it's his mother-in-law living with him. She can't get up the stairs anymore. You'll note we're proposing to add an elevator so as to accommodate her needs. All of those things combined resulted in the reduction, but not a reduction any more than the 30.9%.
Any other questions, Mario? Okay. The other house at 12, the one at 6 is quite small, or much smaller. It's like a match of the existing that was there. But the side yard setback is greatly improved against that number 6. it went from 6.6 to.
And 13, yeah, 13 and 6.2.
And that was between the two buildings.
And across the street's what, like a parking lot, right? Is that across the street?
It is land that's owned by the Richies, and there's also a parking lot for the, for Blue.
Yeah,
Any other questions? Sounds like we've got a condition of ownership that just obviously will go through, but we'd like to understand that. And then the site plan dimensions of making the site plan singular
Application.
and match the application.
You're good with the roof?
Yeah, now that I understand it, for a minute I was not quite sure, but now I can see in CAD we cut the plane.
Sorry about that.
Good old hand drawing. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Comments or issues or? All good?
Ready for a motion?
All right, let's make a motion.
I'd like to propose a motion to, for a positive draft or a favorable decision, sorry. I'd like to make a motion to make a favorable decision based on a couple things that we had just mentioned, including dimensions and match on the site plan and the application included. And anything else you?
I think we're just
Ownership
gonna note a condition that we assume that the two lots will be merged into one.
Sure. A condition to that effect is
Yeah.
fine, so long as we just need that timing is all.
Yep.
Yep, you've already been through COMCOM, so we're not gonna make any conditions about COMCOM. And we do have a standard language, even though we said it on the previous ones, but any changes to the plans as you get the construction, then could cause the building inspector to flag something and bring it back to us.
And with respect to the ownership, the condition I might propose is that prior to a building permit issuing, that the two lots be combined in common ownership.
We're not the enforcing agency, and so it all goes back to the building inspector to make sure everything is checked and in line. And if we have conditions, then he's supposed to be checking those as he grants you the building permit and you get started, he's checking off things. So I don't think he would have an issue. I'm not speaking for him, but if he understands that the process is underway and if you're underway, that there's time to let things happen.
Very good, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time, appreciate it.
Is there a second?
A second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Could I ask one? So just to be clear, are we now on the 20-day appeal period, or do we?
I'll go with that.
Okay, good.
So,
I know we have to make some corrections.
we have to make some corrections, so as the formality is, and with making the decision, and with the size of the decision that we make, we used to approve things in a night and just move it and then sign it. So, we are asking for drawings to be updated, so we would like those updated and sent to us. In the past several hearings, we've continued this to April 18th. So I think we would like to have a motion to continue this to April 18th, receive your drawings. We're gonna get a draft of the decision. It will take that long to draft the decision with everything that we have before Chrissy anyway. And we will get it, review it, and that meeting, it should be short, understanding that you're submitting the drawings that we asked for, and then we'll review the decision and typically approve it right there and then. I understand you probably are itching to get going, but.
Well, I understand, I've been through these many, many times, but only because we had been put off for so long by the building inspector, and we had sort of led us to believe that we didn't need to go through the ZBA at all, so we're quite late on the process, but I understand.
Unfortunately, we have a much better, full, complete multi-page decision that is just as much in your interest as it is in ours. And so that's the process that we now have before us.
Fair enough, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your understanding. Alrighty, we got Cricket Lane.
How about 3 River Street, no one's here?
Oh,
Oh, interesting email received tonight. They differ in their opinion of your opinion of their situation with utilities and.
Say that again.
So they sent the email, so I printed it off so you could read it, and then Martha was kind enough to make her comments to the decision I drafted, and that's what the 11 by 17 copy is. So I don't know if they're gonna proceed. They don't know what they wanna do. I told them that the hearing's open regardless until 4/18, because that's what we said last time, and they continued to that point, because they haven't submitted the supplemental material, so.
we continued to tonight though, no?
We did,
So we can recontinue to,
and they haven't submitted the supplemental, so I figured we'd have to keep it continued again until the 18th, so I told them that in tonight's email, that the meeting would have to be continued to 4/18.
yeah, I mean, there's a yin and a yang to what they're asking for. Okay, so
So I don't even know if the decision is gonna be needed.
could you just read the hearing in, even though there's no
Sure.
hearing, so that we're official with it, and then we might have a word about it, and then on how to proceed?
David and Sharon Brawl, 30 River Street. The applicants are requesting a special permit finding for relief of section 9710D2C, detached accessory apartments of the Newbury zoning bylaw, and any other permit relief as may be required under the town of Newbury zoning bylaws to allow the proposed use project in order to renovate the existing detached barn/garage on the lot to convert it to an accessory apartment on the property located at 3 River Street, Byfield, Mass. 01922, Assessor's Map R19, Lot 59. Continuing hearing from 2/15/24.
Okay, so we just,
Continue to make a motion.
well, we received an email. I don't think any of us have read this email.
No.
I don't think any of us are prepared to, unless someone wants to read it and then discuss it. And we made comments, we asked for certain things about a stair so that the square footage, which was allowed on 1 floor, didn't all of a sudden turn into a 2-floor apartment in terms of limiting the square footage for zoning. And then the second was making sure that the utilities ran from the house. Again, that the accessory apartment is somewhat subservient to the property and not totally separated or isolated structure on the property. So I think we should take this under advisement, and we should think about this, and then we should make a motion to continue this to 4/18.
Okay. Make a motion to continue this till 3 River Street till 4/18,
Second?
7:30.
Well, 7:30 here at Town Hall.
Here at Town Hall.
You're getting better. So we have, April 18th, 7:30 here at Town Hall, continued it. The hearing is still open. Okay. Is there a second?
Now I'll second that.
Second, great, thanks. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Aye.
4/18. Now we're on to other business.
Okay. Board discussion 55R Pearson Drive project. Applicants represented Attorney Douglas DeShane of Finnish and Nichols sent in a letter dated February 7, 2024, requesting an extension to the comprehensive permit decision dated 3/18/21 and filed with Town Clerk on 4/1/21, set to expire 4/1/24.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Douglas DeShane, representing Cricket Lane Development LLC. With me this evening is Walter Erickson, manager of Cricket Lane Development. You will remember some years ago, we appeared before this board and spent a considerable amount of time and effort in working towards an approval of a comprehensive permit for the property. You issued that, and it was filed with the clerk on April 1st, 2021, some nearly 3 years ago. Unfortunately, along the way, we ran into some issues with the Conservation Commission. We ended up before DEP that issued a superseding order to allow the project to move forward. The town then appealed, or the Conservation Commission then appealed DEP's decision. So we ended up in an adjudicatory situation with DEP, which was just resolved 2 months ago or 8 weeks ago?
January 14th.
January 14th. So we are now in possession of the necessary permits to move forward with the project. We have filed for final review with the state to give us our final go-ahead to move forward. And in fact, I will likely be back before this board in a month or so, asking you to sign the regulatory agreements and the other state-required agreements that we have to put in place to preserve the affordability. And of course, some of those documents do require your signature. So we will be submitting those for review by council and be coming back for signatures at some point. But we also did realize in doing final approval that technically our permit is expiring on April 1st. Now, there is certainly a strong legal argument that the permit was tolled during, the adjudicatory process. However, rather than, going down that road and fighting the nuances of that, I felt it would be safer and in some ways a more transparent process to come in and ask for an extension of the permit. It was pointed out to me today that I didn't expressly request the time frame of the extension. Typically, when we seek extensions, we just seek an extension of the original 3-year term. But in this case, my client is doing everything in his power to stop this as soon as possible. He's actually had meetings on site with town staff and departments to begin the process. So we're hoping to break ground as soon as we get final approval. And so we would certainly request just a 1-year extension because we have no concerns that we're not going to break ground in this year. And in fact, I did, as I was leaving the office today, I did receive comment on our final approval application with the state. They had some requested changes and modifications, but I feel we're very well down the road to receiving final approval and would hope to get that in a matter of weeks. So with that, I'm here to ask whether the board would give us an extension of 1 year. As you know, the permit itself provides for extensions, provided that we can show just cause. And I think 2.5 years of litigation is certainly just cause for why we couldn't put a shovel in the ground. In order to effectuate the permit, you actually have to pull a building permit and start a foundation. That would have sealed the deal. But again, without an order of conditions, we were unable to do that. So one of the things that I know Walter, when he met with Martha and some other folks out on the site, there was a discussion of providing a timetable for actually starting and a construction timeline. And I do believe Walter was able to get that in late today.
Yes.
Yes, it was forwarded to the board members.
Yeah, and again, I apologize for it coming so late, but it was just brought to my attention. In fact, Martha and I just talked about it earlier today, so we did make Walt made a great effort to get it. But and we're happy to share that because that is the timeline. Walt is really ready to get going here. But again, typically for an extension, what we need to show is that we had just cause for not starting, and I think we've done that. So, again, in the sake of transparency and cooperation, we're asking the board for a 1-year extension.
Any questions? I have a couple comments.
I have a question, just to clarify, so there is no foundation work been done?
Oh, nothing.
No shovels been put in the ground, no concrete has
They
been
have
poured?
not been able to move forward.
No.
Thank you.
So I just state that understanding what you requested all makes sense, that timelines and time periods and limits are set so that things don't just keep rolling on and things actually then change, like building codes, like land conditions, like things like that. So getting started in earnest would be good. And we did have a decision that had about 61 conditions on it, and we have a list, and understanding the construction schedule. I did receive Martha's email, but I didn't get a chance to open or even look at the construction schedule. So I think we need to make sure as a board, as a town, that we have our processes and we have our understanding in place. And so the construction schedule, the contact list, the lottery agent, a list of any revisions and final documentation, and then a walkthrough, a tedious walkthrough of the 61 items and check the box and understand that some of those items will be checked at the beginning, some in the middle, some in the end. And we, as a board, as a permanent granting authority, have some overview in that. Is it the building inspector that then will manage the decision list, Martha?
I believe that most of them are just conditions tied to various things like the building permit, occupancy, and those things, so it'll be his.
Yeah. And we're not asking to change any of those. We're gonna meet every one of them.
In fact, Mr. Chairman, I have, but I assumed I would be having another meeting with Martha and the staff, and I have all the conditions listed and the requirements of the board. I can give you this, I only brought one with
No,
me.
I've got them. I mean, I've got them printed out as in small format, I've printed them out on large format.
Yeah, so some of the conditions are required prior to any construction.
Yep.
Some are required prior to obtaining a building permit, some are required for an occupancy permit. And the whole list, the way the conditions are structured, I've highlighted them in there and I've got pinpoints so that I can meet those milestones and make sure that I keep track with the town.
Okay. Within a year's time for starting construction, let's say April 1st, when on your schedule is the first foundation set to be placed?
So the way we have it scheduled is, in April, we have to do inspection with the town to show the limit of clearing, and the engineer is out there staking that property now. And then we'll install our erosion control barriers. We have to do an inspection with the town to inspect and approve the limit of clearing that's on the plans. Then we'll build a temporary construction entrance so that it won't impact the residents on Pearson Drive. Then we have that small wetland crossing, so we have to put a small wall along the left-hand side of the road so that we can cross that wetlands. And then we'll have the tree cutter in there in May. And then in June, once we cut the trees, we have a company come in and we stump it, and then we grind all the stumps up into bark mulch and wood chips so that nothing's buried on site. We don't have to truck anything off. Then in May, end of May, June, we start the construction of the roadway, and we'll start the construction of 4 houses on that right-hand cul-de-sac first, as we're doing the roadway. Our roadway, we estimate it's gonna take 3 or 4 months, so our schedule calls for paving the roadway, having the water, the septic system, and all the drainage completed, and the roadway for the entire project paved in October with a binder. And then we'll be building houses as the market demands. So we typically would not have any more than 4 spec houses up at one time, but we will complete the entire roadway to binder so that there'll be access for fire department, emergency vehicles, and homeowners.
And then as we sell the homes, depending on what the market is, we'll just keep going and build them all through.
You're gonna build them from front to back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we think in the market will be completely finished in 2 years.
Okay.
But the roadway binder will be done by October, and it has to be completed, so the permit requires us to be in substantial completion prior to an occupancy permit. So with the water, sewer, drainage, all the utilities and the roadway binder, we'll be able to get our occupancy permits for the first houses probably in December.
Will that be a finished roadway for the finished
The
houses?
roadway will be finished, but not the finished coat of hot top. So.
Okay.
and
They usually want the binder to sit over a winter before you put your top coat on. Or they require it, I think.
Yeah, and what we typically do is we put a binder coat on all our driveways as well. Then, when we go to do our finish, we put in the granite curbing, and we do a finish coat on all the driveways and the roadway all at once, and the project looks brand new. Nobody has any scuff marks, and it works out really well that way.
So a year extension from, let's say, April 1st to April 1st again. And you think that the roadway will be complete and foundations would have been started on at least 4 houses by October?
Yes.
To me, I don't have any questions with the extension as it's been presented and it's been asked for a year to do that. My questions are just double checking that we're aware that our decisions, our conditions of the decisions have been met and have been checked off, and that if there's anything that we need to do, probably Martha, it would be good to have a meeting with a bunch of us. I'd like to be included, even if it's just virtual, just again, to walk through the process in a little bit more detail with other parties involved. And then we're all moving forward together. So
That sounds great.
Yeah, and as I said, once we get final approval of everything, we are gonna have to come in and see you to have you sign those documents. Perhaps we could schedule to do a presentation addressing, all the questions you have that night, so that we're here for one, we can do it at the same time if you'd like. We don't mind meeting separately or offline, but.
I think we'd like to get the building inspector Peter here.
Oh, okay.
Part of the group.
Sure.
And if the level of discussion, yeah, it would be great to have it in a public forum and get it on record and do it all. That would be great. If it seems like it's going to be a little more tedious to walk through stuff, we could have a virtual meeting, and we could still tape that meeting available for everyone.
Sure.
I'll forward that spreadsheet to Martha, so, actually, when we met, I told Martha I was gonna forward that to her, and I haven't yet, but I'll forward that to her so she can keep track of it.
It looks like we have it, right?
Well, we got one from town council, so Eric has done his own, and I think we need to look
So
at both and make sure that we're all on the
They
same
look
page.
pretty good being
Oh,
kind of close. All right, I get
Well, they
it.
stop at 45, I thought,
Yeah.
didn't we go up to
Oh,
50?
we do go up to 50. That
Yeah.
must have been on
Can,
one
can
sheet.
can somebody explain condition number 50 to me? That's the one I'm sticking on. That no one knows, that no one has them?
I have the conditions here.
Isn't
I
that-
have them too, so I just
Isn't that
wanted
the one on
to
the
have someone
left?
explain it to me.
Well, it says permit not expires if construction not started in 3 years. Is
Yes.
that?
It says, "This permit shall expire if construction is not commenced within 3 years from the date it is filed by the board.
Yeah.
For purpose of this paragraph only, commencement of construction is defined as the construction of a building foundation.
Right.
The applicant may apply to the board for extensions," which I assume is what's happening.
Yes.
But, here's my question. It doesn't say anything about extenuating circumstances and times, tolling and other appeals and other battles.
That's not in your decision, but under the Mass General laws,
40B regulations.
the 40B regulations, the law specifically states that that time period for the 3 years is automatically told if there's any appeal from a state, federal.
I see that in Councilor DeShane's submittal, but I don't see it here.
No, but it's
I mean, the
also-
town's got plenty of paper, well, why wouldn't we
Sure,
have written
also-
it if they were extending, if they were
I
extending the
will,
service?
I can send you a copy of Mass General laws and the 40B regulations.
I think you.
That's, no, but I mean, that's the regulation that says you can request an extension. But in the regulations, it provides more of a basis for your analysis of the extension. And you generally can't just sit on your hands for 3 years and come in a week before and say, hey, I'd like an extension. You have to show just cause.
I understand, and you've been doing that here, but it seems like if I just read this one condition, it's open and shut, we quit meeting.
I think
We
there's a reference to 760 CMR in that condition.
There is.
which is
Yes,
what
that,
Dave
that
is-
3-year time period is also in the state regulations, so it's in every approval for 40B.
So 760 CMR has that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We are governed, the state is governed by Massachusetts general law.
No, I understand all that, but I didn't know that was my answer. Explaining it, the 760 CMR grants, allows the tolling, so that's what I was trying to clarify.
And my point about the schedule and asking for more detail and trying to figure out with an April 1st extension from April 1st to April 1st of 2025, that the process for construction sounds organized enough that the road will be in and at least 4 of the house foundations will be started by October. And there is some leeway if construction shouldn't get started in the next 3 months in order for October to turn in and start the foundations before following April. That
I'm
makes sense?
very anxious to be out here, I have to be honest with you, I've been waiting a long time.
Yep, and we're, with everybody's interest, we're just trying to make sure we're by the book and we're understanding, and this is the first 40B, so a lot of people have eyes on it, we're just making sure we're at due process here.
I also was talking before about a lottery agent, for instance. I typically used on some of the 40Bs, Chelmsford Housing Authority actually runs the lottery for a lot of municipalities. They're all set up to do it, they're full-time directors and they actually run the whole lottery. We pay them a fee and they've run the lottery for us in Westford and they've run the lottery for us in Tingsboro and some of the 40Bs. So we would like to use them for the town of Newbury and, you know, the town can work directly with them. We pay the fee and they run the whole lottery and we don't have anything to do with it, you know.
And that's, I think, part of the joint discussion amongst us is to make sure we understand, Martha, from the town side on all the conditions and the process of who's got the overview before we get started, so that we're all aware going forward.
Right.
We're not, we as a town are not trying to figure this out halfway through. We've each, the proper people with the proper responsibilities are involved, alerted, and are involved.
Make sure we know who has overview of what and approval.
Right, and if we have any questions, we can ask town council, and we'd like to get it all straightened out before you start, because that's the best way to do it.
As part of our final approval that we're in now, the state actually has to approve our lottery agent, which is another reason we use a lottery agent that has been, you know, approved by the state to do dozens of these projects. So you'll find that Chelmsford Housing Authority is a well-respected lottery agent, but again, we have to get approval from the state before we can even propose to you. So.
And one question, we wrote a letter regarding local preference.
Yeah.
Do you know where that stands, or is that?
They will put that in the lottery procedure, so the lottery agent will take that local preference and they set it up. And one that I've done in the past, what they do is the number of people that apply for the lottery, for the local preference, they put in like 2 tickets for the local preference to give them better chance to get picked or something. But as I said, we don't get involved in that because it'd be a conflict.
But you propose the lottery agent, the state approves it, we can question the lottery agent on how they go about meeting the requirements?
Yes. They'll come up with a lottery plan and they'll submit it to you and you work with them.
Okay. Anybody have any issues? So I'll make a motion to grant an extension, a one-year extension from April 1st, 2024 to April 1st, 2025 for the same conditions of meeting the requirements of starting construction as currently defined. And anybody have anything to add to that? No?
Seconded.
Is there a second?
Yep.
All right, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so you have your one-year extension.
All right, well, we look forward to working with you on this one.
Yep, and we have,
There will be a lot of communication.
yes, and we need to get kicked off in the right direction with the right information.
Yep, we'll assure that.
Okay,
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice, thank you.
Thank
St.
you.
Patrick's Day.
Is Lisa gonna draft that extension? Is Lisa gonna write that extension up?
if you'd
I
like
don't have one
to.
as an example.
Yeah,
I'd rather have.
I can take a shot at it.
Okay.
It's done for the body
Yeah.
board, then we should get that filed with Gretchen by the 1st.
Okay.
Is go ahead.
We can have Lisa review it.
Is it a lengthy decision? Is it pretty
It's usually
straightforward?
a certificate of vote saying, granting, stating that you voted.
To
at
grant
an open
an
meeting,
extension
a one-year
from this date to
extension.
this date?
Yeah.
Okay. And it does need to be filed before the 1st?
It should be, the 1st is the expiration date, so it should be done.
So do we need a meeting to,
I think it's just correct me if I'm wrong, I think it would just be a matter of signing it,
okay,
because you voted, it's basically certifying your vote to grant the extension.
correct, it was a motion to grant the decision. I didn't specifically say draft, but just make the decision and we voted on it. Okay, all good, just above water.
And it might, as Larry's saying, it might be fine to, have the board authorize you to sign it as the chair, or Mario to sign it as the vice chair, whatever, the clerk. Otherwise, we can arrange.
Kind of new ground for us. Is that
When all of you come in.
typical what you guys do for the planning board?
I think for those, we've actually had everybody sign. Yeah.
I'll sign it.
Okay, and
Are you all going to be around? Is anybody going to be away?
I'm away from I'm back on the 26th,
When are you leaving?
the 20th. Next Wednesday to next Monday, I'm in town. We can make it happen in the box.
Do
and-
you have the electronic signature?
Just stamp?
No, okay.
Yes. It just prints out funky size and we just have to cut and paste and fit it to the paperwork. Wasn't very usable, but it's okay.
You didn't like my signature?
You too, no, I didn't.
Wasn't your
Mine
signature.
didn't work either.
So,
It's fine, you just have to position it right and
Manipulate it.
reduce the size and,
Yeah.
but it works.
We'll work it out.
It'll be okay.
We'll work it out.
okay, but everyone understands
It's like
that
art
there's going to be
class.
something in the
Yes.
box that needs to be signed before the 1st.
Yes.
All right, we're good to go.
All right.
Great. Yeah, is there a motion to,
Make a motion to close the meeting tonight?
great.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, meeting's closed, thank you.